Hi everyone, and welcome to another one of my videos. This video takes you through the worked solutions to the most recent February higher Year 10 assessment. And with all my videos that take you through the worked solutions, the golden rule is that you should never be watching the video, looking at the screen and writing at the same time. It's not the answers that you lack, it's the understanding of a few questions. So the way to use it is this. You first of all find a question you can't do, and you watch that part of the video and try and understand it. Don't write anything down, just focus on understanding. Once you've watched that part of the video, stop the video, shut your laptop down, put the screen down, and then you try and do it without any further help. If at any time you need extra help, that's fine. Stop writing and watch the screen once again. If you have to keep on watching the video and you still don't get it, ask me for help. Of course I'll help you. But the golden rule is that you never write and watch the screen at the same time. Okay, let's get on with the questions. So the first question I think everyone was fine with. It's pi r squared for your area. This is your radius, not the diameter. 5.8 squared times pi. Just be on the lookout for some mistakes people make. They go pi times radius and then they square it. That gives you a completely different answer. Make sure that you round your answer to one decimal place. Okay, so you take your answer here, which will give you 1 mark, and then you round it to one decimal place, which gives you the second mark. Peter has a 5-sided spinner. The spinner is biased. That means some numbers are favoured more than others. And the probabilities that the spinner will land on 1 or 2 or 4 or 5 are given in the table. Work out the probability that the spinner will land on 3. So these probabilities must add up to 1 because these are the only numbers that the spinner can land on. So it's certain they'll land on one of these numbers. So you just simply add up the 4 numbers you've got, which comes to 0.8, subtract it from 1, which means the remaining probability must be 0.2. Peter spins the spinner 200 times. Work out an estimate for the number of times the spinner will land on 1. And that's important because some people took this answer here, which is the probability that it lands on 3. The probability it lands on 2 is 0.3. Now that probability means that it will happen about 0.3 times, or of the time. That's the probability and how often it will turn up, 30%. Okay, 0.3 is 30%. So if you flip the spinner, or spin the spinner, 200 times, 30% of those times will be 1, and 15% will be 2, 25% will be 4, and 10% will be 5 on average. That's why it says an estimate, because of course what happens on the spinner will change because it's not sure. Okay, so the number of times you would expect would be 200 multiplied by 0.3, so you just multiply the number by the probability to give you 60. Question 3. The diagram shows a shape ABCDEF. All the corners of the shape are right angles and the perimeter of the shape is 28. Work out the area ABCE shown shaded in the diagram. Now, the first thing you've got to do is you've got to work out what these missing sides are. We know this is 6 because this part here is 2 and this part here is 4, so this part here is 6. But if we don't know what that is, okay, well, let's call it x. Well, if that is x and that is 3, this bottom part will be 3 plus x. Now, how do I find out what x is? Well, I could do it by guesswork, but a more elegant way of doing it, and the way that gets more marks, is to write it as an equation. You know that 4 plus x plus 2 plus 3 plus 6 plus 3 plus x is the perimeter of the shape, and that must add up to make 28. So 4 plus 2 plus 6 plus 3 plus x plus 3 plus x must be 28. Gather these numbers together and you get 18 plus 2x, an x there and an x there. So this just tidies up and makes this more easy to solve. If you write it like this, equals 28. Take away 18 from both sides, you get 2x must be 10, and so x is 5. So if this is 5, then this is 8. So first of all, you've worked out what x is, and if you've just done that, you get a mark. Okay, now we've got to work out what the whole area is going to be. Now, if you're looking at this shape here and thinking to yourself, how on earth can I work out the area of this arrow shape? I don't know the formula. You don't need to. I don't know what the formula is. Okay, but if instead you worked out the area of this L shape, this back to front L, okay, and then subtracted these two triangles, this one here and this one here, then you'd be left with the area that you need, and that's the plan. So the first thing we need to do is work out the area of this L shape. There's a couple of ways to do it. In fact, there's 3 ways to do it. You could cut it into 2 rectangles this way. So here's a rectangle here, and here's a rectangle here. And work out the area of the rectangles and add them together. Or you could cut it this way. So you've got a rectangle here and a rectangle here. And lastly, you could consider this L shape to be one big rectangle, but with this rectangle here missing. Okay. Now down here, they've cut it this way. So cutting it this way, this rectangle will be 4 by 5. So 4 times 5 is 20, so this rectangle is 20. This would be 3, and this would be 6. 3 times 6 is 18. 20 and 18 makes the 38, which is what the area of the L shape is going to be. Another way to work out the area of this L shape is to say, well, this is 8. 3 plus the 5 you've worked out, and this is 6. So 8 times 6 gives you this area of this big rectangle, but we've got a bit missing. What's the area of the bit missing? Well, this is 5 and this is 2. So 5 times 2 gives you 10, which is the area of the rectangle that's missing. So 48 subtract 10 also gives you the same answer of 38. So whichever way you do it, you'll get the same answer of 38. You get a mark for that. Okay, now we need to subtract the area of these triangles. Well, this we've just worked out is 8. Half base times height, remember that, half base times height. 8 times 4 is 32, half it is 16, the area of that is 16. 3 times 6 is 18 and half it is 9, the area of this triangle is 9. So, if you subtract the 16 and the 9 from the 38 of the whole area, you get 13. 13 square meters is your area of the shaded grey shape. Here, it's a prism, and the minute you hear prism, you know you've got to work out the area of this face and then multiply it by the 12, the length of the prism. So we need to find a way of working out what the area of this face is. Now you could cut it into a rectangle and a triangle, that would work, but probably the simplest way to do it is to consider this to be a trapezium with a rectangle stuck on the bottom. A lot of people try to do it as a trapezium and they forgot about this rectangle stuck underneath. So this part here is the trapezium and underneath is the rectangle. Okay, the formula for the area of a trapezium is half the top plus the bottom, like the average of the top and the bottom, times the height. Well, if this is 3 and this is 8, the height of the trapezium will be 5. Okay, this part is 3, so this part must be 5 to make the 8 you've got here. So 3 plus 8, top plus bottom, is 11. Half of that is 5.5 times the height, which is 5, is 27.5. If you did that, you'll get a mark. There's a rectangle underneath, that is 3 and that is 8, and so 3 times 8 is 24. So the area of the rectangle is 24, and so the total area is your trapezium plus your rectangle, which is 51.5. That's the area of the face. And the volume of the prism is the area of the face multiplied by its length. So it's 51.2 times 12, which is 618. Solve these simultaneous equations. Well, what you've got to do is you've got to make either the x is the same or the y is the same. Now we can see that both numbers here or both things here are positive, so it really doesn't matter. We could make the y is the same or the x is the same. This person has chosen to make the x is the same by multiplying everything here, and that's important, everything here, by 3. 3 times 2x is 6x, 3 times 3y is 9y, and 3 times 9 is 27. So we've multiplied this equation by 3. If we multiply this equation by 2, 2 times 3x gives me 6x, 2 times 6y gives me 4y, and 2 times 16 gives me 32. Now you can see the reason why I did this, or why the person did this, because now we've made the same amount of x. And that means when we subtract this equation from this one, or the other way round, we will get no x's because we've got the same amount of x. That's why we did it, so that when we subtract one of these letters, in this case the x's, disappear. Now this part you've got to be really careful, because we're going to take this equation away from this. 6x take away 6x, no x. 9y take away 4y is 5y. 27 take away 32 is minus 5. So we're taking everything in this equation away from everything in this equation. So it's 27 take away 32. That's a real important point, because what a lot of people do is they take the small number away from the big number. That doesn't make sense. Okay, so it's not going to be 5 here, it's going to be 27 take away 32 minus 5, in which case 5y is minus 5 and y is minus 1, so you get a mark for that. Then you get a mark for putting this value into the equation. So take this one here, you just worked out that y is minus 1, and we know that 3x plus 2y is 16. So 3x plus 2 lots of minus 1, because that's what y is going to be 16. 3x minus 2 is 16. Add 2 to both sides. 3x equals 18. Divide both sides by 3. X is 6. So the answer is x is 6 and y is minus 1. Complete the table of values. For y is x cubed minus 3x plus 1. Now I really recommend that you work this out without a calculator, because calculators need brackets to do this. Otherwise, if you don't use brackets with negative numbers, the calculator will throw up numbers that you might think are mistakes. It's because you don't understand how the computer works, or the calculator works rather. So I recommend that you take it slowly, you show you're working out, and you do it by hand rather than use a calculator. This one's worked out already. Okay, when x is 1, y is going to be 1 cubed, take away 3 lots of 1, plus 1. 1 cubed is 1, so it's 1, take away 3, which is minus 2, add 1, minus 1. Minus 1 goes in here. When x is 0, x cubed will be 0, and minus 3x will be 0, so it will just be 1. When x is minus 1, you will have 3, they've given it to you already. When x is minus 2, it will be minus 2 cubed, so it's 2 cubed, which is 8. Is it going to be plus 8 or minus 8? Well, it will be minus times a minus times a minus. Minus times a minus makes a plus, times a minus makes a minus, so it will be minus 8. Be careful here, take away 3 times x, which is minus 2. So, minus 3 times minus 2 makes plus 6. Add 1. You're always adding 1 here. So, minus 8, I beg your pardon, add 6 is minus 2, add 1, minus 1. And these are your points. Now you plot them, first of all. Okay, and look, you get a mark for plotting at least 4 of them correctly. Okay, and then you join up the points in a smooth curve. Don't join them up with straight lines. Okay, it doesn't make sense to join them up with straight lines if they're not in straight lines. For example, if you hadn't worked out this point, someone joining it up with straight lines would draw a straight line from there to there, even though we can see the pattern of the dots doesn't fit that. Okay, a nice smooth curve going through the dots. Find an integer, that's a whole number, that satisfies both the inequalities. 4x plus 3 is greater than 15, and 4x minus 2 is less than 2x add 8. So what you need to do is solve each of these inequalities. 4x add 3 is greater than 15. Solve it like 4x add 3 equals 15. Take away 3 from both sides, you get 4x is bigger than 12. And now share by 4, you get x is bigger than 3. So to make this work, x has to be bigger than 3. Get a mark for that. Here, looking at the second inequality, 4x minus 2 has to be less than 2x add 8. Okay, take away 2x from both sides. Solve it like you would if that was an equal sign. You get 2x minus 2 is less than 8. That's a start. Now I've just got x's on one side of the inequality, when before I had them on both sides. I took away 2x from both sides. Now add 2. I get 2x is less than 10. Just like if it was 2x is equal 10, I divide by 2 and I get x is less than 5. So, if it's going to make this work, x has got to be bigger than 3, and for this to work, x has to be less than 5, and it has to be a whole number. The only value that would suit would be 4, because 4 is a whole number that is bigger than 3 and less than 5. The line L is shown on the grid. Find an equation for L. Well, first of all we need to work out the gradient. Now the gradient is sloping upwards, so it's positive. Choose 2 points on the line that go through corners of squares so you can count how far along and how far up. Here we go along 1 and we go up 3. So the change in y is 3 and the change in x is 1. 3 divided by 1 is 3. The gradient is 3. It means every time we go along 1 we go up 3. The y-intercept is where this line crosses the y-axis, and that's minus 6. And so we can simply put these values that we've worked out into our equation. Y equals 3x minus 6. The x number, what's called the coefficient of x, is always the gradient. These two numbers are always the same. This number is where the line crosses the y-axis. Y equals 3x minus 6. A train travels 2 kilometers in 1 minute. What is its average speed in kilometers per hour? Well, they've worked it out this way, but there's a far more simple way of doing it. If it travels 2 kilometers in 1 minute, well, there are 60 minutes in an hour. So if in every minute you travel 2 kilometers, in 60 minutes, an hour, you would travel 60 lots of 2, 120. And that's the most simple way, I think, of getting the answer. Okay? This teacher, just so you understand what they've done, is divided 1 minute by 60 to make 1 minute as 0.016666 hours. So now the time is in hours, and now it's distance divided by time. 2 kilometers divided by your time in hours, which gives you 120. It's a bit of a more complicated way, in my opinion, of doing it. There's a more straightforward way of doing it, which is the way I just said. Multiply that by 60. Okay. Describe fully the transformation that maps A onto B. Well, you can see that it's not a reflection. I beg your pardon, it is a reflection. You can see it's not a rotation. There's no way of rotating that onto that because they're facing in opposite directions. You're not sliding it along. Okay, it's a reflection. And the mirror line is this line that goes through here. Okay, if you just look at that and just tilt your head and imagine that to be a mirror, you can see how that would reflect over onto there. So that's when it says the single transformation, because what a lot of people do is they say move it to here and then do something else. Okay, the minute you start saying and then, that means that's 2 transformations. So it's one single thing. It's a reflection. You get a mark for just saying reflection. In the line y equals x. Where's that come from? Well, it's this line here. Okay, and it goes through the points 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, 5, 5, 6, 6. All the places where the y number and the x number are the same. So that's the equation of the line, y equals x. So a reflection in the line y equals x. What moves A onto C? Well, we've moved it. To move this to here, we're just going to slide it along. We're going to slide all the points 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to the left and 1 down. That's where this shape can move. This point would move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 1 down. This corner would move to here and it would move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 1 down. All the corners move the same amount. So 5 to the left is minus 5 and 1 down is minus 1. 5 to the right and 1 up would just be 5, 1. But this is 5 to the left and 1 down. Translation is just a slide. On the grid, enlarge shape A by scale factor minus 2 about 0, 2. And what you need to do is move lines. Okay, here is your centre of rotation, or beg your pardon, of enlargement. Okay, and you just draw lines. Okay, I can show you this later on. That's probably a more simple way of doing it because the teacher hasn't shown you the lines that you need. Okay, I can go over this myself with you. Factorise 6x squared plus 5x minus 6. So we need to split this into 2 brackets. Now they've told us to factorise it. That means it must factorise. Okay, we need to put in numbers here. Okay, so that 3x times 2x makes 6x squared and minus 2 times 3 makes minus 6. Now there are other numbers that you could put here to make minus 6. For example, you could have minus 1 and plus 6. You could have 1 and minus 6. There's lots of other pairs. In the same way, you could have 3x and 2x here, but you could also have 6x and x, or the other way around. So it's important to work out which ones are right. You know you got it right when you get the 5x here. Look, 3x times 2x gives you 6x squared. Good, that's what we want. Minus 2 times plus 3 gives you minus 6. Good, that's what you want. Do we get 5x? Well, minus 2 times 2x gives me minus 4x. 3x times 3 gives me 9x. 9x minus 4x gives me 5x. That's how I know whether the numbers I put in here are correct. Okay, everything has got to be worked out from the numbers here. Okay, not just the 6x squared and the minus 6. Here are some graphs that show relationships. A curve or line of best fit has been drawn on each graph. The equation of each graph is one of the equations in the following list. Give the equation of each graph. Right, so first of all, let's look at what I know. I've got a line here that's a straight line and it's sloping down. So what I'm looking for is this one here. Alright, there's no x squared or powers of x or anything like that. Okay, so it's got to be either this one or this one. These are the two that are going to give me straight lines. Okay, but this line slopes down, so I need the x number to be negative, so it must be this number here, or this equation here. So that one means that graph B is this. So even if I can't do the other ones, I do the ones I can do. Okay, now this one, I can see a familiar shape. If I flipped it upside down, it would be x squared, or something involving x squared. So this one is upside down, so it must involve minus x squared. And I reckon it's going to be this one here. Okay, this x squared is going to give me this shape I'm looking for, and the minus here will flip it upside down. If I had y equals 3x squared, that shape would be like that, this familiar U shape you've seen before. Okay, this is the one I need. Now what about this one here? Well, it shapes like this. Now, I know it's not going to be these two, because these are going to be straight lines. I know it can't be this one, because it's what I've chosen for this one here. So it's either 3x squared, or it's y equals 2 to the power of x. Now, it can't be y equals 3x squared. How do I know that? Well, because if x is 0 here, I'd have 0 squared, which is 0, times 3, which is 0. So when x is 0, y is 0 for this particular equation of a line. And here I can see that it's not. Okay, it's not 0, so it can't be this one. The remaining one is this one here. Okay, so when x is 0, I'd have 2 to the power of 0, and that's 1. And that fits. When x is 1, it'd be 2 to the power of 1, which is 2. Okay, when x is 2, it'd be 2 to the power of 2, which is 4. And so on. Okay, so it makes sense that it's this graph here. Okay. Question 13 says construct a triangle with an area of 20 square centimeters using a ruler and compasses. Now, what a lot of you did is you correctly identified two sides or two numbers that would make an area of 20. So for example, if the base was 8 and the height was 5, then base times height is 40, half it is 20. So 8 and 5, for example, there are other numbers, would work to make an area of 20. What you didn't do though is you didn't choose the right sides, okay, because you made, say for example, 8 along here, and then you made these two sloping sides 5. The best way I think to do it is to say make it a right angle triangle. That would be simple. Okay, now if this was 8 and this was 5, you should use Pythagoras to work out what this sloping side is. If you don't know about Pythagoras, ask me. Okay, so before you can draw the triangle, you need to know what all three sides are going to be. So what my tip to you would be is to make it a right angle triangle, because that's nice and simple. This can be 8 and this can be 5. 8 times 5 is 40, half it is 20. But before we can draw that triangle with a compass, we need to work out what this sloping side would be. So 8 and 5, use Pythagoras to work out what this side would be, and then you've got all three sides of a triangle which you can then draw using your compass. 14. I is v divided by r, B is 250 correct to the nearest 5, and R is 3,900 correct to the nearest 100. So, first of all, you need to find out what your upper and lower bounds are for V and R. Okay, the lower bound will be 247.5 and the upper bound 252.5. The lower bound for your resistance, R, is going to be 3,850 and the upper bound is going to be 3,950. Now we've done that in class, so if you're not quite sure, ask me. Now we're going to work out the lower bound for the value of L and give your answer to 3 decimal places. So we want to make L as small as possible, and we do that by making this as small as possible and this number as big as possible. So that's what we're doing here. That as small as possible and that as big as possible. So we want the lower bound for V and the upper bound as big as possible for R. So it's going to be 247.5 divided by 3,950, which gives you this figure here, if you then round to 3 decimal places, 0.063. Mark is going to play 1 game of chess and 1 game of Scrabble. The probability he'll win the chess game is 0.7, and the probability he'll win the game of Scrabble is 0.6. Complete the probability tree diagram. So once you've got this sussed, it's easy to marks. Okay, so Mark wins chess is 0.7, so the probability he doesn't win is 0.3. Okay, because it's got to add to 1. This is a game of Scrabble, so the chance he wins is 0.6, the chance he doesn't win is 0.4. And once again, we've got wins and doesn't win, so it's again a repeat of this, 0.6 and 0.4. This is just a way of setting out all the different ways that could happen. So we write this again because here he's won the game of chess, and here he hasn't won the game of chess. So we've got 4 possible things that could happen. That's all the tree diagram does. It's one way of describing the 4 things that could happen. You could win chess and win Scrabble, win chess, lose Scrabble, lose chess, win Scrabble, lose chess, lose Scrabble. So these are the 4 things he does. Okay, just a matter of writing these numbers in and getting 2 easy marks. The probability that Mark wins both games is going to be 0.7. Well, it's going to be the probability he wins chess and, there's the key word, the probability he wins Scrabble. And whenever you say and, you multiply. So the probability he wins is 0.7 for chess and 0.6 for Scrabble. You multiply them together and get 0.42. Write an expression for the area of this rectangle. Well, the area of a rectangle is half base times height. Okay? Now, if you look at this, the base is x plus 7 and the height is x. Now, so the base is x plus 7 and the height is x, so it's base times height, and then half it. Some of you did this well, but you didn't put the bracket in. You only get 1 mark, so you can't get that if you haven't put the brackets in. It's really important that the bracket goes in here, because this whole expression here is the base. The area of the triangle is 22 square centimeters. What is the value of x? Now, I've probably quite generously given you a mark if you've worked out the answer being 4. Okay, if you normally do it just by guesswork, which actually is a pretty good way of doing it in this particular case, you can get it and work out it's 4. Okay, just try different numbers, work out, say for example, is x 2? Okay, well if x is 2, this would be 9 and this would be 2. 2 times 9 is 18, half it is 9, you don't get 22. Is x 3? 3 plus 7 is 10, that would be 3. 3 times 10, 30, half it, 15, doesn't work. Is x 4? 4 plus 7 is 11, and that's 4. 4 times 11 is 44, half it is 22. So that's actually a pretty good way of working it out. What they've done here, and what actually gets the marks, is to work this out as an equation. Okay, so we know that this expression here has to make an answer of 22. Okay, so x squared, half x squared, plus 7 over 2x is 22. Okay, just getting rid of these brackets. Multiply everything by 2 to get rid of these horrible halves. We get x squared plus 7x is 44. Take the 44 over to here. By subtracting 44 from both sides, you get a quadratic. It should factorize, and it does. Okay, so x times x gives you x squared. 11 times minus 4 gives you minus 44, and 11x minus 4x gives you the 7x. So we have factorized, okay? We've got two brackets that multiply to make 0. That must mean that either of these two brackets could be 0. If this is 0, x would be minus 11, and if this is 0, x would be 4. So our two values would be minus 11 and 4. Well, in this particular case, x can't be minus 11. It doesn't make sense, because this would mean the height is minus 11 and the base would be minus 4, which doesn't make sense. Okay, so the only value, even though we've got two answers, the only one that makes sense is that x is 4. Zoe invests £4,000 in an account for 5 years. The account pays 4.5% compound interest for the first 2 years and then 3% interest for the remaining years. What will be the value of her investment after 5 years? Right, well, the multiplier for a 4.5% interest or increase is 1.045, and 1.03 is your multiplier for 3%. So it's going to be £4,000 multiplied by 1.045 twice, okay, for each of the 2 years, then multiplied by 1.03 and another 1.03 and another 1.03, okay, for the 3 years here. Okay, so 2 years of 4.5% interest multiplied by 3 years of 3% interest. Okay, and that then just gives you your answer you're looking for. And remember to round it off, because it's money. Paula asked 30 students what they ate for lunch. All the students had at least sandwich and a salad and a fruit. 5 students had a sandwich, salad and fruit. Blah 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 blah. Okay, draw a Venn diagram to show this information. So first of all, you get a mark, I believe, if you write 3 interlapping or overlapping circles. Now the one to start with is this one here. 5 students had a sandwich, salad and fruit. So 5 go here. This is the place where the 3 circles overlap, so 5 goes here. Now, then it says 7 students had a sandwich and a fruit. Now, here is sandwich and a fruit. Now, where people went wrong is they put a 7 here. And that's the bit where they went wrong. No, this part here is the interlap, or the overlap rather, intersection between sandwich and fruit. So we know in here there must be 7 people. Well, 5 of them have sandwich, salad and fruit. Okay, so these people have sandwich and a fruit, but they have salad as well. So we've already got 5 of them. So here must be 2 to make the 7 students that had sandwich and a fruit. So this is sandwich and fruit. And you can see 5 add 2 is 7. 9 students had a sandwich and salad. So where's sandwich and salad? It's here. Once again, we've got 5 of them already. They had sandwich and salad, and they had fruit, but they still had sandwich and salad. So 5 goes here. So that means we need 4 to go here, not 9. Okay? 4 to go here, so that this totals to be 9. The rest of the idea, I think you had it okay. If you look at it from that point on, I think you'll get it right if you fill in the rest of the numbers. One person is chosen at random. Find the probability they have sandwich but not fruit. Well, there was 30 people here. Sandwich but not fruit. Who had sandwich but not fruit? Okay. 7 people here. Okay. Okay, so they need to be inside the sandwich circle, but not inside the fruit circle. So there are 3 here and 4 here, making a total of 7. So there were 7 people out of the 30 that had sandwich but not fruit. Okay, this question says, given that the person has salad, find the probability they have fruit. So the probability is not out of 30, it's, okay, once you know that people have got salad, find the probability that they have fruit. So what are the people who have salad? It's all the people in here. So it's 4 plus 5, add 2, add 7, which is 9, and 9, which makes 18. So there are 18 people here. Okay, so if they have salad, what's the probability they have fruit? Where's the fruit? It's here. Okay, 5 here and 2 here. So these 7 people are people who have salad and they have fruit. So the chance of choosing someone that has, if they have salad, also has fruit is 7 out of 18. Solve the quadratic equation x squared plus 2x minus 15 equals 0. You've got to factorize it. So we're looking for an x and an x here, that's pretty simple. And two numbers that are going to go here and here that are going to multiply to make minus 15. So you could have plus 5 and minus 3, or you could have minus 3 and, minus 5 and plus 3. You could have 1 and 15, or minus 15 rather. You could have minus 1 and 15. But you need to have 2x there. Okay, so you're looking for two numbers that multiply to make minus 15 and add together to make 2x. Okay, so 5 times minus 3 is minus 15. 5 add minus 3 is 2. So the answer you're looking for is x plus 5 and x minus 3. And if it is equal to 0, we just put each of these brackets to 0. So either x plus 5 equals 0, which means that x must be minus 5, or x minus 3 must be 0, which means that x must be 3. So you've got two values, x is minus 5 or x is 3. 1 mark. Question 20. The diagram shows a solid prism made from wood. The mass of the prism is 51.2 grams. Calculate the density of the wood. Give your answer in grams per cubic centimetre. Right. Well, the first thing you need to do is work out how much wood you've got. You need to work out what the volume is. Okay. So it's a prism. So that means we need to find out the area of this face. Half base times height, 8 times 4 is 32, and half it is 16. So the area of this face is 16, times by the length, which is 4, gives you 64 cubic centimetres. So your volume is 64 cubic centimetres, okay, and your mass is 51.2 grams. Okay, so this is what 64 cubic centimetres weighs. You need to basically work out what 1 cubic centimetre would weigh. That's what the density means. What is the weight of 1 cubic centimetre? Okay. Now, if you can't remember the formula, okay, one way to remember it is, look, it's basically telling you this with the units. It says give your answer in grams per cubic centimetre. So that's the mass. This line also means divide, and this is your volume. So the density is actually the mass divided by the volume. So it's going to be 51.2 divided by the volume, which is 64 cubic centimetres. So it's 0.8. The probability that Simon passes his driving test is 0.6. If Simon fails his driving test, he will resit the test again until he passes. Find the probability that he passes his driving test on his second attempt. So, how will that happen? Well, if he passes on his second attempt, it must have meant that he would have failed in his first attempt. So, you're looking for the probability that he fails his first attempt and, keyword, passes on his second attempt. The probability he passes is 0.6. The probability that he fails is 0.4. So the probability that he fails is 0.4 on his first attempt, and then passes on the second attempt, 0.6. 0.4 times 0.6, 0.24 is your answer. Finally, the last question here. Well, that's something we haven't done, and just in case other people from other classes are watching this, okay, we can go over this. Okay, so basically, we've got two curves, and we need to know when they're going to cross. So when they cross, the y values will be the same. So what we do is we say, okay, well, when the y values are the same, this must be equal to this. So the first thing we do, and we get a mark for doing it, is to say x squared plus 2x plus 3 must be equal to x plus 9. So now we're going to solve that equation. We're going to solve it by taking all of this over to here. Basically, take away x from both sides. Okay, we get x squared plus x plus 3 equals 9, and now we subtract 9 from both sides. Okay, and we get x squared plus 6x minus 6, because we're going to try and factorise this. And before we can factorise it, we've got to have the expression written equal to 0. Okay, not another number. We split it into two brackets. 3 plus minus 2 makes 1 lot of x, and 3 times minus 2 makes minus 6. So these are the numbers that are going to go into the brackets when we factorise this expression. Okay? Now, that means that x is minus 3, which makes this bracket 0, or x is 2. So we've got two x values. Well, we need to find out what the coordinates are going to be. So if x is -3, what will the y number be? Well, take the most simple one here. Y is going to be x plus 9. So when x is -3, y will be -3 add 9, which is 6. So if x is -3, y is 6. If x is 2, y will be 2 add 9, which is 11. So when x is 2, y is 11. So there are two places where the curve crosses, or they cross each other, and that's at -3, 6 and 2, 11. Okay, that last question was pretty tricky, and it's probably a grade 8, grade 9 kind of question. But if you want me to take you through it again, okay, personally, I'm happy to do that. That's the end of the video. I hope that was helpful to you in understanding a bit more about how you could have answered some of the questions. But as I said before, if there's anything you want me to go through individually, then please let me know. Cheers guys, thank you, bye.